Hello folks, I'm Dave Isaacs, and I am here today with a simple beginner blues lesson. And this is looking at 3 very simple Delta blues licks. And I'm pulling all 3 of these from Muddy Waters' Catfish Blues, also known as Rolling Stone. And I am not pretending to give you a transcription of how to play the song. I'm picking out this tune because it really has no chord changes. It's E all the way through. And Muddy plays a whole bunch of different licks, but for the most part, you are hearing variations on 3 things all the way through it. So I'm going to give you all 3 of these. If you are an absolute beginner, then one of the things you definitely have to have down with the blues is your sense of a pulse. I would also recommend that you spend some time learning how to thump with your thumb. Now you can use the flat pick too. Muddy did play with his thumb. You might find that it's helpful to let that thumb come out ahead of the fingers a little bit. I've got my hand resting on the other strings, which is not a problem at the moment. We just want to make sure we've got freedom to move that thumb, and notice that I've got the entire thumb working. I am not using just the thumb joint. I'm using the entire thumb, and that means all the way back here. That's all thumb. Now, I could be holding a pick and doing something somewhat similar in the sense that my overall hand position is not all that different. No pick, pick. And that I am looking at the pick as being an extension of my thumb. So the fact that I'm holding my index finger against my thumb to hold the pick doesn't change the basic orientation of that thumb movement, which is the pad, the rounded part of the thumb pushing towards the floor. So if you are comfortable using your fingers alone, do it. If you're not, excuse me, just be aware that we are aiming for the bass strings. But the lick I really want to show you to start with, and this is tricky for a beginner, is this bending lick. Pretty quintessential, right? Add that to the thumping bass. Kind of instant Delta blues, right? Very common lick. And now we're going to use this. Well, there's a few ways we could do this. I'm using my middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and when I bend on, say, the 3rd string, 4th string, 5th string, I will frequently pull down towards the floor rather than pushing up towards the ceiling. I could, but for this, that feels more right to me, and I want you to notice the way I'm doing this. It's primarily my middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. My index is there to back it up, but it's not doing much. And all we're really talking about is, if you watch my left forearm, so I'm going to come in closer and you can watch how my finger does not change position at all. I'm just kind of swinging my arm, but it's not elbow, it's the whole forearm towards the floor. And then what we do is, remember with practicing bends, you need to be thinking about what I'm going to call the shape of the bend, which is how quickly does it go up, how long do you stay up, and does it or when do you come down. So in this case, it's sort of a smooth up and back down. We're not really spending any time on the bent note. So it doesn't take as strong a bend as I just played. It does not need to move a whole step. That's not the note we need. The note we want is really somewhere between B flat and B natural. There's a lot of blues that lives in that middle ground territory between minor and major. 2, 3, and 4. Now look at the timing. I'm counting triplets in a slow 4. 2 and a 3, and a 4. So I think we're coming in on the and of 3. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, open, and then down to the 2nd fret of the D string. So I'm feeling this as 1, and a 2, and a 3, and a. Or just make it faster. It's basically fitting into a beat and a half. 1, 2, and 3, and 2, and 3, or 4, 1, 2, 3. Now, that's also a very common bass riff, and we've got a ton of variations on this. It's already sounding familiar, I'm sure. I'm just hanging out in my E position like I was, and this time I'm using my middle finger on the 3rd fret of the E string, a small bend, like a quarter tone, and up here to the 4th string 2nd fret, which is E, 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 E. The thing is, I want to alternate between these two licks. 1, and 2, and 3. You might notice that it's changing a little bit as I play it. What you really want to do is to get it right, or rather, I should say, what you want to do to get it right is sit and listen to Muddy Waters playing Catfish Blues, and don't be intimidated by the fact that it does change, because truthfully, all you're trying to do right now as a beginner taking your first steps is to get close. And even if you're not getting very close at all, listening to it rather than watching me is the way you're going to get the details. Watching me is the way you're going to get the mechanics. So, keeping aware of that bend, the pull down, thump, and 2, and 3. And notice how I'm kind of popping 1, and 2, and makes this very satisfying. And you could play this, really any of these licks, you could just repeat. But that bass lick, you've certainly heard that before in many variations, and so I'm thumping with a little bit of palm mute on my low E, 1, and 2, and 3, and 2 fingers. And that little pop is the emphasis. I want to make that note a little brighter, so I give it a little more energy. And now, 1, 2, 3. Two, 3. Here's one more lick. Hammer on the 3rd string, 2 fret 1. Minor major, once again, there's a lot of blues that lives in the cracks between the minor 3rd and the major 3rd. We're just doing a hammer on. You could do a trill if you want to do a trill. And I'm changing up the rhythm a little bit, but let's say for simplicity's sake, and this is what's in the tab, we have simply an alternation, because blues is all about call and response, between the bending lick, the bass lick, the bending lick, the hammer on. Watch this. You want to do that bend with one finger, with the index. Nothing wrong with that either. And the thing is, I can mix up that order. As I said, the tab has bending lick, bass lick, bending lick, hammer on. Almost. Now you can do that hammer-on in time, ba, 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 or as a grace note, or as a trill. And you can see, I think, already how useful all of this is, because I can change up the order, I can change up the tempo, and I have different songs. Okay, so I tripped on a couple of things. Excuse me. I don't think I'm editing this, so sorry about that. Allergies today. 3 licks. All right, so once again, I'm going to come close so you can see my hands. Not complicated. Remember, all the greats did, or I should say this, one of the things all the greats did was learn bits and pieces of the blues vocabulary from older players, from things they heard around them, from songs they heard, and through their own working through all of those little bits and pieces, they developed styles of their own. That's what we're trying to do. So this is a building block lesson, but something that I hope you can clearly hear is going to be really, really, really useful for putting those building blocks together in lots of different ways to build your blues vocabulary. I am Dave Isaacs. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.